When young girls aren't taught how to think for themselves, society and consumer culture teach them what to buy, who to be, and how to define their self-worth. Consumerism steps in the moment, critical thinking, and internal literacy are left out. When a high school teacher breaks down in tears because his graduating seniors can't read, write, or critically analyze the world around them, we see the true cost of failing to implement leadership literacy from the foundational stages all the way to graduation for both boys and girls. Leadership training in school cannot be an afterthought. It must be baked in early. In today's episode, we're unpacking why empowering our young girls starts with internal literacy and how we build real consumer immunity from the ground up. We believe change starts with a debate. First background and then the debate.
Oh yeah, growing happiness with Dr. C. Alchemy for your soul. The Transformation Podcast. The Transformation Podcast.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Growing Happiness with Dr. C. If you're new here, my name is Dr. C. I create content around emotional literacy, happiness, purpose, and helping you cultivate a life centered on soul, spirit, and body. This is part 2 of our consumerism topic. If you have not watched part 1, you might want to do so, and then come back to part 2. Before we even talk about consumerism solutions or strategies today, let's make sure we're looking at the real landscape. When society talks about raising confident, grounded young black girls in today's hyper-commercial world, we usually hear one of two paths. Option 1 is trying to completely isolate our little girls from every trend, brand, and social media message out there. Option 2 is giving in completely, buying every product, following every fashion trend, and hoping they naturally figure out their self-worth along the way. Now, unless you're planning on moving completely off the grid, option 1 is almost impossible to maintain. And option 2 leaves our girls totally unprotected against a multi-billion-dollar culture that literally monetizes their insecurity. Today's episode, we aren't taking either extreme. Instead, we're opening up a necessary debate about what consumerism is actually doing to our girls' mental health, stress levels, and childhood, so we can build real, lasting consumer immunity from the inside out. Grab your notebook and let's dive into it. Before we begin, I want to define one important word, consumerism, so that we all will share and understand the meaning collectively.
I agree with you. So what is the next step?
Yes, ma'am. First, let me remember my manners. Let's define consumerism so that we are on the same page of understanding. Welcome back. Consumerism is not simply buying what we need. We all need food, clothes, school supplies, transportation, and things that make life work. Consumerism is the belief that buying, owning, wearing, and displaying more will make us more valuable, more beautiful, more successful, more accepted, or more worthy. It is the message that says, if you buy this, straighten this, lighten this, wear this, post this, own this, or look like this, then you will finally be enough. And that is the problem. Consumerism does not only sell products. Let's be clear. Consumerism is about monetizes insecurity. For little black girls, these messages can be especially heavy. They are often surrounded by images and social pressures connected to hair, skin tone, body shape, clothes, makeup, brands, popularity, social media attention, and appearing older than they are. Before a girl fully understands who she is, the world may already be telling her who she is supposed to become and what she is supposed to buy to get there.
Hello, I'm Dr. Rona Barrett. You might be wondering why we should have a debate about consumerism. Why analyze both sides of how consumerism touches the lives of our little black girls? Because real transformation never begins with passive agreement. It begins with critical awareness. A healthy debate isn't about picking a fight or winning an argument. It's about bringing the unspoken tensions into the light. It forces us to examine the thin line between authentic self-expression, cultural pride, and joy on one side, and profit-driven, predatory commercial exploitation on the other. Debate pulls us out of autopilot and makes us pay attention. Let's get a little more background.
How do you turn a child's self-image into a business model? By monetizing insecurity. For little Black girls navigating heavy racial and gender stereotypes, this is especially dangerous. It starts with a normal question. Do my natural hair and clothes make me pretty enough? Consumerism answers that. It isn't just buying necessities, it's the manufactured belief that products give you status. Enter the insecurity to profit pipeline. It takes a child's natural state and applies a societal filter, projecting Eurocentric beauty and adult-coded femininity as the only baseline. This creates a double bind. She's judged for appearing too mature, while the market says looking older is the only way to matter. The industry brands her natural blackness as a flaw, then sells cosmetics and status brands as the ultimate cure. Social media weaponizes this loop, turning cures into a public scoreboard and escalating insecurity into chronic stress. But true belonging doesn't come in a bottle, a label, or a brand. And that young girl, she realizes her inherent worth never has to be purchased.
Welcome to the debate. What if the deepest insecurities you have about your own body, weren't actually yours?
Mm-hmm.
What if they didn't naturally develop over time, but were deliberately designed in a corporate boardroom, grafted onto your mind, literally, just so someone could sell you the cure?
Right. It's a heavy thought.
It really is. Today, we are examining a profoundly unsettling and honestly brilliant piece of text. Dr. C's framework, Roots, Rhythm, Rhyme, the manufactured need. It's this deep exploration of how manufactured messages about hair, skin, and bodies specifically target, infiltrate, and affect little Black girls.
Yeah, and it really is a survival guide for the mind. I mean, it breaks down the exact mechanics of how an entire demographic is targeted. It shows how this manufactured need works its way through the soul, then the spirit, and finally, the physical body.
It is a survival guide, absolutely. But, where we diverge today is how we are actually supposed to use it. When we look at Dr. C's ultimate goal, what the text calls achieving one whole happy body, the real question becomes, what is the primary battlefield here?
Right.
Does this framework demand that we focus on dismantling external commercial exploitation? Meaning, we have to actively audit the marketplace, verify who owns what, change the structural environment? Or does it prioritize fortifying internal psychological sovereignty, where the real fight is just tending to one's own beliefs and internal habits?
And that distinction matters immensely, because where you locate the primary threat, that dictates where you're going to spend all your energy. Look, I read this text and I see a powerful argument for internal reclamation.
Okay, unpack that a bit.
Well, these manufactured messages are powerful, yes, but they only work by grafting onto pre-existing internal roots. Because of that biological reality, your primary defense just cannot be fighting a billion-dollar marketplace. It has to be internal root tending. You save the person from the inside out.
Yeah, and I read this text as a searing structural critique of capitalism and commodification. The machinery described here is it's entirely external. The text explicitly points out how the same hands that manufactured the discomfort are the ones selling the relief.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just meditate your way out of a structural economic trap. The intervention demands an external audit of the marketplace.
Well, let's start where the text starts, right? The point of vulnerability.
Sure.
To understand how to fight this manufactured need, we have to look at how it actually takes hold of a person. Dr. Cruzada writes about the roots, or the soul phase, and the text is incredibly specific here. It says that a manufactured message is not landing on empty ground.
Meaning the target already has a belief system in place.
Exactly. And this is the crucial psychological insight that explains how this exploitation actually works in the real world. A message that tells a little Black girl, your natural hair is unprofessional or your complexion needs to be corrected, it doesn't just invent the concept of inadequacy out of thin air.
Right, that wouldn't work.
No, the human brain would just reject it as nonsense. Instead, it succeeds because it hijacks a healthy, beautiful root. I mean, think about the ancestral, deeply human desire for community, for success, for belonging.
Those desires are already planted in her before she even has words for them.
Oh, I'm tracking with the psychology of the graft here. It's parasitic.
Completely parasitic. The manufactured message comes along and grafts the idea of shame onto that healthy desire to belong. It twists the root. And because the grafting of shame requires a healthy root to latch onto, Dr. C argues that the first work is not correction, it is root tending.
Right.
If the vulnerability is internal, the armor has to be internal. If she can go back to the source of a thought and ask, wait, whose voice planted this? Was this my family's voice or something sold to me? She anchors herself in her actual ancestral pride. When she does that, the soil rejects the graft. The manufactured shame simply cannot take hold if the internal environment is hostile to it.
Okay. I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective.
Go ahead.
I honestly struggle with this framing because it feels like it places the entire burden of defense on the victim of a multi-billion-dollar assault. Yes, the text mentions root tending, but look at the sheer scale of the mechanics being described.
I hear you.
If a global industry is actively pumping a toxin into your environment, you don't just sit there tending to your internal roots, hoping your immune system is strong enough to fight it off. You stop the person doing the grafting. The text explicitly points out that the shame is produced, quote, if the grafting happens early enough and repeats often.
The repetition is key, yes.
But that repetition is external. It's the constant bombardment of advertising media algorithms and retail aisles. It is an industrial complex designed to ensure the graft happens early and repeats daily.
Right.
If we only focus on internal root tending, we are ignoring the structural reality that there are literal boardrooms of people whose full-time job is to bypass whatever root tending a mother might try to teach her daughter.
Look, I hear the frustration with the structural reality, but it assumes we have no agency. Let's be practical. How do you actually stop a global industrial complex from the outside?
Well,
you can't just flip a switch and turn off capitalism. The text understands this. It doesn't say the first work is dismantling the advertising agency. It says the first work is root tending. Why? Because it acknowledges that while the external assault is constant, the susceptibility of the assault is where we have ultimate agency. Think of it like malware trying to infect a computer system.
Okay, I like that. Go on.
The marketplace is constantly sending out phishing emails, right? Millions of them a day, perfectly designed to look like they belong in your inbox. You cannot stop the hackers from sending the emails. But root tending is the process of rewriting your internal code so that you don't click the link.
Okay, but
If we know exactly what our true voice sounds like, and we can spot a dressed-up corporate voice, the malware fails. The external system starves because it can't find a host.
but let's look at who wrote the malware, because that's where the malice of the design really reveals itself. This isn't just a random vulnerability. It's a closed-loop economic system, which brings up Dr. C's concept of rhythm, or the spirit. How does this initial psychological graft turn into an actual daily buying habit?
The text calls it the drumbeat.
Right, the drumbeat of discomfort, relief, repeat. And I want to pause on the sheer, calculated malice of this design. Dr. C writes, the same hands that manufacture the discomfort are more often than not the hands selling the relief.
Yeah, it's intense.
This is a brilliant indictment of the marketplace. They aren't just planting a passing thought. They are establishing a rhythm until reaching for a specific product feels less like a choice and more like breathing. It's essentially a subscription model for self-doubt.
That's a good way to put it.
They engineer the problem just to monopolize the cure. The fact that the same hands are playing both sides of the transaction proves that this is a structural economic trap. It's not just a spiritual crisis.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. I don't disagree that the economic model is predatory. Absolutely it is. But look at how Dr. C defines the solution to that rhythm. The text explicitly tells us that the spirit is what keeps the rhythm.
Okay.
It says, quote, "The spirit is the part of us that keeps rhythm. It is our pulse, our pacing, the beat we move to without thinking. If the rhythm gets hijacked, who holds the power to stop the dance? It is not the drummer. The drummer cannot force your feet to move. It is the dancer.
But a pause is just a temporary interruption. If the drum keeps playing, eventually you're going to step back onto the beat. You're asking a child to constantly pause while a billion-dollar drum beats in her ear every single time she opens her phone or walks into a store.
I don't think a pause is just an interruption, though. The text frames it as an assertion of sovereignty. Dr. C calls it a beat skipped on purpose, long enough to ask, is this my rhythm or one I was sold? The power to break a habit doesn't require destroying the store that sells the product. The power comes from the individual's breath. Imagine being in that store aisle. You feel that sudden manufactured urge, that engineered discomfort telling you that you need this product to be acceptable.
Right.
The pause is the profound internal psychological victory of feeling that urge and consciously choosing to pull your hand back. A reclaimed rhythm, as the text says, means she starts choosing the beat again. The locus of power is entirely internal.
Okay, so she pauses in the aisle. Let's explore what happens next. Because the framework doesn't stop at the pause. It moves into the rhyme, or the body phase.
Yes, the physical manifestation.
Exactly. This is where the internal beliefs and the rhythms manifest in physical reality. What a person actually buys, what they wear, how they adorn their physical self. Now, if the text was purely about internal spiritual sovereignty, Dr. C could have ended the framework at the pause. You win the internal battle, you walk out of the store, the end.
True.
But the framework demands we interact with the physical marketplace. Dr. C explicitly warns against commodified representation, and this is where the structural critique hits its absolute peak. The text warns that even a black face on a label can be a hollow rhyme.
Wait, let me stop you there.
Sure.
Walk me through exactly how you interpret hollow rhyme in this context, because I think this is where our readings really diverge.
A hollow rhyme is an optical illusion created by the marketplace to bypass that very pause you're talking about. It's a sound that matches on the surface. You walk down the aisle and you see a beautifully designed label featuring a black woman with natural hair. The marketing copy uses language that sounds exactly like empowerment, community, and ancestral pride. But it's an illusion. It carries none of the original meaning underneath. It is owned, designed, and profited from by conglomerates with, Dr. C puts it, no stake in whether she ever feels whole.
So the aesthetic matches, but the intent doesn't.
Exactly. It is textbook structural exploitation. When you buy a product like that to fix a manufactured insecurity, you are essentially paying rent on your own self-worth to a corporate landlord.
Wow.
You don't own your beauty standard. You're leasing it from a conglomerate. And what is Dr. C's prescribed work to fix this? The text says we must demand verified ownership, a founder, not just the face. That is an external audit. You have to verify the supply chain, the corporate structure, the ownership. You cannot achieve a true rhyme if you are adorning your body in things rented to her by someone else's rhythm.
That's a compelling argument, but have you considered the internal state of the buyer? Paying rent on your own self-worth to a corporate landlord. I mean, that is a brilliant metaphor. It really encapsulates the economic extraction here. But let's play that metaphor out based on your structural focus.
Okay.
Suppose you do the external audit perfectly. You demand verified ownership, and you find a product with a founder, not just a face. The corporate structure is 100% community-owned. The profits stay in the community. The supply chain is flawless.
The ideal scenario.
Right. But the little black girl is still buying that verified product because she fundamentally hates her natural complexion, or because she believes her hair in its natural state is unacceptable, a belief planted by years of manufactured messages. She is using a structurally pure, community-owned product to soothe a psychologically manufactured shame. Has she achieved what the text calls one whole happy body?
Well, no, of course not, because the internal insecurity is still there.
Exactly, because external verification is entirely useless if the internal roots haven't been tended first. You can buy from the most verified, ethically pure founder on the planet, but if you are still buying to pacify a grafted insecurity, you are still dancing to the drum of the manufactured need. But the framework is soul, spirit, body.
The sequence matters. The body, the physical purchase is the very last step because it is downstream of the internal work. If you skip the soul work of root tending and you skip the spirit work of the intentional pause, your structural audit of the marketplace is just rearranging the furniture in a house where someone else still owns the deed to your self-worth.
I see the sequence, but you are downplaying the feedback loop between the body and the soul. Why does she hate her complexion or her hair in your scenario? Because the hollow rhymes in the physical marketplace have relentlessly told her to?
Well, sure, they play a part.
The text points out that a rhyme is a pattern that echoes so the ear recognizes it before the mind explains why. That physical environment, what she sees on the shelves, what she wears, the actual products that surround her, creates the echo that shapes her soul. When Dr. C demands verified ownership, it's about stopping the production of toxic echoes.
But you can't sanitize the whole world?
No, but you can change the market dynamics. If we only focus on the internal pause, we allow these corporate conglomerates to continue filling the physical environment with hollow rhymes. That guarantees that the next generation of little black girls will have to fight the exact same grueling internal battle you're describing. By demanding founders, not just faces, we are changing the actual structural rhythm of the market. We are replacing the toxic drum with a genuine one so that the echo the next generation hears is actually true.
Capitalism is incredibly adaptable, though. If we teach our girls that their safety relies on verifying the corporate structure of every single product they encounter, we are giving them an exhausting, impossible task. It is a form of hypervigilance.
Yes, and hypervigilance is in itself a lack of freedom. You're asking them to be forensic accountants of their own beauty products just to feel safe in their bodies. But look at how the text actually defines a true rhyme. The work is teaching her to check whether what her body wears actually echoes where she comes from. If we teach them to verify their own internal echo, to ask, does this echo my story or someone else's script, we give them a tool they can carry into any environment. Whether the aisle is filled with verified founders or hollow conglomerates, the armor is internal, and it is entirely portable.
I hear you on the exhaustion of hypervigilance, but the text literally says the mandate, verify before you buy, is carried forward into this final phase. It is asking us to do the paperwork even if it frames it as soul work. Dr. C explicitly states that a product can look like it rhymes with her roots and still be owned, profited from by someone with no stake.
Right.
If the text only cared about the internal feeling, the internal echo, the profit margins of the parent company wouldn't matter. The fact that Dr. C highlights who profits proves that this is fundamentally a critique of economic extraction from the community. The manufactured need isn't just stealing her self-esteem, it is stealing her wealth. It is an economic trap disguised as a beauty standard. You can't dismantle an economic trap just by feeling good about yourself.
I'm not denying the economic extraction. It is undeniably happening, and the text rightly calls it out. But let's look at the formula at the very end of the piece. Soul plus spirit plus body equals one whole happy body. The culmination of this entire framework is not one perfectly audited marketplace. The culmination is the person.
Right.
The text's final handoff summarizes the goals perfectly. Roots that hold what's true instead of what's sold, rhythm that moves to her own beat instead of someone else's drum, rhyme that echoes her own story instead of someone else's script. Look at the subject of every single one of those sentences. It is her truth, her beat, her story. This framework is deeply, unapologetically intimate. It is about restoring the sovereignty of the individual black girl against the system that wants to render her into a mere data point of consumption.
But her truth, her beat, and her story are exactly what is being rented out by the marketplace. When Dr. C says, things rented to her by someone else's rhythm, that is a description of a structural power dynamic. We are back to the landlord. She doesn't own her own beauty standard because a corporation holds the deed to it, and they are charging her every time she looks in the mirror. How do you stop being a tenant? You demand ownership. You change the structural dynamic of the market.
You stop being a tenant by realizing you already own the land. That's what the roots section was trying to tell us from the very beginning. The roots were already there. The ancestral pride, the belonging, the beauty, it
It was already hers before the manufactured message ever arrived.
Well,
She doesn't need to buy her self-worth back from the marketplace, even from a verified founder. She needs to realize the marketplace built its entire multi-billion-dollar model on a psychological illusion. The discomfort they are selling the cure for, it's manufactured. It isn't real. The moment she takes that breath, that intentional pause, and realizes the discomfort was grafted onto her, the illusion shatters. The drum stops.
you know, this has been a deeply illuminating exchange, and I think it highlights just how multi-layered Dr. C's work really is. Let's take a moment to summarize where we've landed. My position remains that Roots Rhythm Rhyme provides a crucial, urgently needed blueprint for recognizing and combating commodified representation. By exposing the machinery of discomfort, relief, repeat, and warning us about the optical illusion of hollow rhymes, the text demands that we dismantle external exploitation. We simply cannot achieve a whole happy body while continuously interacting with and funding an economic system that financially benefits from engineering our insecurities. True rhyme requires external vigilance, verified ownership, and changing the structural environment.
And my position remains that this framework is fundamentally a masterpiece of internal empowerment and psychological sovereignty. The marketplace is predatory, absolutely, but its methods rely entirely on internal grafting. Therefore, no manufactured need can survive a person who tends their own ancestral roots, recognizes the inherited beauty already present, and reclaims their own rhythm through the intentional pause. The primary battlefield is not the store aisle, it is the soul. When the internal echo is true, external manipulation, no matter how well funded, loses all its power over her.
If there's a clear point of convergence for us today, it is our mutual awe at how Dr. C identifies the malicious genius of the manufactured need. We both agree on the insidious nature of how these messages operate.
Absolutely.
They don't arrive as obvious, cartoonish attacks. They dress up as our own organic thoughts, or they mask themselves as a natural, everyday rhythm. The way a manufactured insecurity can masquerade as a personal desire is the true danger outlined here.
Yeah, and we might remain in disagreement about whether the primary audit should be of the external marketplace or the internal soul, but we are completely aligned that an audit must happen. The machinery of the manufactured need only thrives in the dark when we aren't paying attention.
We do agree on that. And as we reflect on that final formula, soul plus spirit plus body equals one whole happy body, it becomes clear that this isn't a one-time fix. Whether you are interrogating the corporate ownership on a beautifully designed label or interrogating the origin of a sudden insecurity in your own mind, it requires deep, ongoing, daily work. It is a commitment to ensuring that every choice we make is actually echoing our own story, rather than playing out someone else's highly profitable script.
It is a lifelong practice of root tending, and it's a practice that Dr. C argues is entirely within our power to master.
It is. So as we leave you today, we ask you to think about your own daily rhythms. The next time you feel a sudden, urgent need, a flash of discomfort that demands immediate relief, perhaps by reaching for your wallet, take a breath. Take that intentional pause. Look closely at the feeling and ask yourself, is this my rhythm or one I was sold?
Thanks for listening.
Vigorous debate only matters if it leads to real action. And action only happens when school leaders are brave enough to recognize that leadership and emotional literacy must be baked in early, starting in the 3rd grade, not patched together at the start of high school. Listen to this teacher's heartbreak, because without systemic change, this will continue to be the reality for our children.
These kids are leaving high school and going to college, hopefully, after they finish. We have what's called block, and block is where first and second periods are combined for subjects that need it. And so I literally broke down in the middle of class because I have seniors who simply cannot read and seniors who cannot write. they cannot write. They can reason. They have the ability to defend their reasoning if it's talking to their homeboy, but applying that to a written text, 2 paragraphs, and they couldn't do it. Our young black men, our young brown men, our young black girls, and our young brown girls.
I mean, this is heartbreaking. This is real. And talking is just not enough. If you are ready to take action and bring these foundational tools to your students or children today, download the free transformation workbook in the description below, and let's start building the solution. And for school administrators, principals, and educators who are ready to implement a proven, comprehensive leadership framework across your classrooms, reach out to me directly. Let's start the conversation and give our students the foundation they deserve.
I think she's onto something. Yes, that is what I think. Go on and click that like button and subscribe. Reach out and have that conversation.